I do a lot of it. It brings, but I try to make sure that I do it where I'm going to bring people into the audience. So I don't just make a movement to make a movement. I make this movement because it's telling you a story about what I'm about to do. So I feel like if you're theatrical and it works with what you're doing and they understand your story more because of it, it has a purpose, really, then I would say that it's probably something good to bring into your speech. But if you're just doing it so that you can move around the room and get that extra, I've been here and there and both of the sides have seen me, then I would say it's not going to work with the speech and you'll look overdone.
I would say it depends on the speaker. If you know you're not theatrical, don't try it. And if you're Martha, you can't contain yourself. So it really just depends. I mean, you have to do what is going to draw the audience to you, and knowing yourself is the most important piece of that. I think that as you sit and design a speech you write it for yourself, and that's something you shouldn't forget, because lots of people are going to give you advice. And tons of people told me to dial it up, and tons of people told me to dial it down. And they were all writing a speech for themselves and trying to help me. And I got advice from people who gave me wonderful advice, but it still has to go through the terror screen. Because if I listened to everything those people told me, it would sound, some of that stuff would sound so weird coming out of my mouth, because it wasn't written for me. And it wasn't catered to my style. And that was something that I really had to learn through this process, because you feel a lot of pressure. People are going out of their way to give you advice and be helpful. And at some point you have to make decisions and say, I'm going to listen to that, I'm not going to listen to that. And this sounds very critical, but I'm still going to pay attention to it. And all that has to go through you and what suits your speaking style. So I think one of the best places to start as you figure out your style is what gets an audience reaction to you, and go with that. And then make sure your speech stays true to yourself. So for you, you know what works for you. Don't give a Ryan Avery speech. For Martha, that's what she does best. And I think for me, I can do it, but I need to keep a little bit of a cap on it. So I think everyone's different.
Same thing if you take a look at actors that good actors and bad actors. And the good actors, just playing themselves, they're very natural, and that's the same thing as a speaker. So you can use some of the quote-unquote acting techniques, but that doesn't mean, I have to be dramatic. And no, you still be yourself, and that's very important. And sometimes people may mix that up.
Thank you. Fine. I'm going to continue with a few more questions, and then we'll open it up for all your questions. And I'll ask anyone who wants to answer, how did you adjust your speech when you saw the green light, or the yellow light, or the dreaded red light? How did you adjust for that, and what techniques did you use to make sure that you kept within time?
I think this is where everyone should have an alternate ending. You have to have an exit strategy, and hopefully you've practiced enough that you don't have to do it, but you never know how the audience is going to react, and if you get off schedule, then you need to be able to make the dive ending. So I think probably everyone had one. I can't actually remember that I used mine in a contest, but boy, it's nice to know you have it if you need it, and you know exactly where you are when you're supposed to be when that green light comes on. It's the best feeling when you're already past that. And when the yellow light comes on, it's time to make a decision. Am I going to ditch it or not? And by the time the red light comes on, you've already sealed your fate. So you have to have an exit strategy, and it can break your heart if you end up in a position where you have to give up the end of your speech because you like the end of your speech, but it's really important.
Okay. All right. The next question is, was being nervous a good thing or a bad thing for you?
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Because when you're nervous, that means, you feel this butterflies in your belly, just gives you an adrenaline kick. And that's very important to have when you go on stage there. And let me tell you from experience, it doesn't matter how many times you go on stage. Every time when you go and have an opening night, and that's when you go to a new level of speech, But in actors terms speaking, if you have the opening night, it doesn't matter if I've already been a seasoned actress. Every time I have those butterflies in my belly, and that's good. But what you want to do is just, if it's getting too tense, make sure that you can control it with breathing. Do the right breathing technique. Just breathe into your belly and just concentrate and just kind of be strong in your mind and your breathing, and that helps you to not get overboard with the butterflies.
For me, it's a bad thing. I don't drink a lot of coffee these days, but especially when I drink coffee, I have a tremor in my right hand, and any kind of adrenaline will set it off more. And so any kind of nerves will really set it off, and it's hard to speak in front of people when your hand is doing this because everyone assumes that you're afraid of them. And that's not really what it's about. It's not about you, but it's something that that worries me. And the other thing that worries me is that I'm going to forget my speech. And in my case, in the semifinal rounds, what really scared me was that I had completely revamped my whole speech on some advice 2 weeks ahead of time. So I was very worried about forgetting how the speech was supposed to go or relapsing into the old version of the speech, and that made my nerves a lot worse. And it was actually so bad that one of the other semifinalists in my round was like, "Tara, it's gonna be okay," before we competed. And my recommendation is just, everyone has different things that make you nervous, and there's nothing I can do about a tremor, but the thing that I can do about the worrying about forgetting, because I know that's really what I worry about, is to practice a lot. And Sarah was with me the last 2 weeks in Malaysia. I stayed with her at her mom's house, and she can tell you I practiced a ton, because I really was concerned about not getting everything right and forgetting. And so for me, that was the only thing I had available to conquer my nerves ahead of time. And I don't like them, and I wish I could make them go away, but all I can do is try to make sure I'm as prepared as I could possibly be.
Okay. I'm going to ask one final question to the panelists before I open up to everyone in the audience. And you all spoke about having learned something during your journey. So tell us what you learned most about your journey in 2014 or 2015. And who goes first? I'll say Sabine goes first.
Okay. Well, I learned that you can always learn more. That there are the people that you are competing with are your teachers. And, always stay humble, be confident. But for me, the most important part was seeing the caliber, and that gave me another kick to become better and work more on the techniques that makes us better communicators and speakers.
I would say you're always harder on yourself. When I did my semifinal speech, I messed up really bad by saying, I think I said my Mr. Toastmaster instead of contest chair.